need a Canada First plan to fix what the Prime Minister has broken. The first time he went head-to-head with Trump, the Prime Minister was forced into accepting humiliating concessions on agriculture, steel tariffs, and on Buy American. And that was when Canada had a stronger position thanks to a decade of low-tax, pro-job, conservative policies. After 9 years of economic vandalism, though, he's put Canada in an extremely vulnerable position. Per capita GDP is now lower than 9 years ago. Canada has the most indebted household amongst our trading partners. We have the worst housing inflation, and food prices have risen 37% here, faster here than in the U.S. Now that he's negotiating a position of weakness, why should Canadians expect any...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Export Promotion and International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. We will always be there to protect Canadian workers and Canadian businesses. We have been there for Canadians before when we renegotiated NAFTA. I remind the member opposite that it was the Conservatives who wanted us to capitulate during that time. But we stood strong, and that's a testament to the facts. Canada-U.S. trade is at an all-time high last year of $1.3 trillion. Canada places the highest priority on trade and the integrity of our shared border. Mr. Speaker, we look forward to working with the incoming administration.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
It was that Prime Minister that was forced to accept humiliating concession after concession. And now he's kneecapped Canada's economy. He's slapped a massive carbon tax here while the U.S. doesn't have one at all. He's raising taxes on investing in Canada while the U.S. is fighting to attract investment there. He's imposed a production cap on Canadian energy, meaning Canada will produce less of what the U.S. needs to buy. There are less than 60 days left to act. It's time for the Prime Minister to put aside his partisanship, his ideology, and his ego. Will he strengthen Canada's position by cancelling his carbon tax and all tax hikes on jobs and investments?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, will take no lessons from the Conservative. Their strategy, Mr. Speaker, last time was to capitulate. On this side of the House, as the Prime Minister said, Mr. Speaker, is to take that seriously and methodically. Mr. Speaker, we have been engaging with our U.S. partner on three key things. The first one is security. Security of the border, security of the North and the Arctic, resilient supply chain when it comes to semiconductors, when it comes to critical minerals, when it comes to energy, and put forward a growth plan for North America, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we'll fight for Canadians, we'll fight for industry, we'll fight for our country, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Everywhere we look, we find more evidence of economic carnage, and now we're up against the biggest economic and security superpower, and this government has no plan. We need a Canada First plan to fix what the Prime Minister broke. When he took office, our GDP per capita was 81% of the U.S.'s. Now it's fallen to 73%. It's a made-in-Canada problem, and it's not about vibes. It's driven by higher taxes, higher spending, higher regulation, and this government's economic vandalism. Faced with the threat of tariffs, when are they going to stop the vandalism and start fixing the crisis so Canadians have a chance?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, when the Conservative Party of Canada wanted us to back down during the last round of NAFTA negotiations, we stood up for Canada. We stood up for Canadian workers. We stood up for the steelworkers in Canada, Mr. Speaker. We stood up for Canadian auto workers. We stood up for our farmers and agricultural workers, Mr. Speaker. They want to know what the plan is. We plan on doing it again and getting a win-win for Canada and the United States.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, they backed down themselves last time, and Canada has become poorer since then than Alabama. That's not a record that anybody should be proud of. Our productivity gap with the U.S. costs every Canadian $32,000 a year. Average return on investments are 35% higher in the U.S. than in Canada. Our government's plan to quadruple the carbon tax, they doubled housing prices, they increased taxes on work and investment. With the threat of crippling tariffs, will the Prime Minister end all of the tax increases so Canadians stand a chance?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we have an excellent relationship with the United States, a relationship that is mutually beneficial. We do enormous amounts of trade with the United States, and the United States depends on Canada for much of its energy supply, Mr. Speaker. They want to know what the plan is. The plan is to continue to work with the United States in order to protect Canadian jobs, in order to protect the Canadian economy and make it grow for everyone.
That's right.